A theory to be called great science must uplift the human spirit.
If somebody does something better than you, don't waste your time. Never compete.
And new means nobody's done it before.
Looking through this cryptographic lens, you can view theoretical computer science, according to Shafi.
It's important to find something that you are excited about and to focus on that.
You don't want to give up on something too quick.
Creative moments are rare and come suddenly and unexpectedly, but they only come after preparation.
I think questions are more important than answers. If you ask the right question, you create the possibility for great things to happen. And sometimes we don't necessarily need the answer, or somehow if we don't know how to answer the question, we get an answer to a different question.
But there was a dream of writing distributed programs where they would have components running on different computers, they would communicate by sending messages, and nobody knew how to do that. So I thought, this is a great problem. And so I jumped into distributed computing.
The goal is to find something that is simple enough that you can actually make progress on. So I think the key thing is to go into a project with an idea that if you could do this and this and this, then things might work out. And you have to have some theory about how you might approach those things.
You start with a dilemma. How come people do it and machines don't do it yet? And that has a tremendous inspirational power because you have an existence proof. It can be done.
My progress through mathematics was kind of characteristic of my progress through life. That is, I was just doing the things that fascinated me all the time. I just found that as time went by, I was in better and better company doing it.
And I wondered, what's a good model for the brain? Is it a finite automata? Is it a Turing machine? Or is it something in between? What's the model? And I was wondering about what might be the right model. Here's the model. A human is a finite state machine, all right, but with access to a long-term, relatively permanent memory and a short-term working memory.
So often things seem paradoxical, but once you put them in the right way, you have the right model, and you add the cryptographic toolbox, you can do it. And I think that's a very important message to keep in mind.
Well, to really understand something is that you can teach it to a computer. The computer doesn't just nod its head and say, I got it. You have to put it into such explicit terms that you really understand it. And so this idea of algorithmic thinking, it means putting whatever concept you're trying to explain into such precise, exact terms that a computer would be able to digest it.
When you design, you need to think abstractly, and having a thing that matches the abstract thought, that helps you with your design. So being able to think in terms of what data abstraction do I want for this place? What procedure abstraction do I want for there? This is a design approach.
This is what problem finding is about. You suspend judgment. Because as soon as you pick the problem, if you pick it early, you're picking it from the assumptions that are taken as normal. If you can suspend the judgment on it, you're starting to try and understand what the heck is going on and what path through this should I try to do.
Why are programmers reluctant to write specs? Well, writing is hard. Writing is hard, in fact, because thinking is hard. Thinking doesn't guarantee that you won't make mistakes, but not thinking generally guarantees that you will.
I had to become a cognitive psychologist. I couldn't depend upon my cognitive psychological friends. Don't believe it when they tell you that what you need to do is to collaborate with a psychologist and he will do this for you, or she will do this for you. They won't and they can't. If you want to work across fields, you become professionals in both fields.
The question is, what are the things that I have no good excuse for putting off? And of all those things that I'm sort of ready to do, which is the one that I like the least? That's the one I work on. And the reason is that, so every day I'm doing something that I don't want to do, but I get stuff out the door and that makes me happy.
In my own case, the issue is I'm not a mathematician. I was never going to prove any of those deep theorems. In fact, I was never going to prove any of those undeep theorems, okay? And I have designed my scientific life in some sense, to simply deal with that. I don't fight it. And so I work with the things where I'm strong, I understand my flaws, and I stay away from them.
Very often in doing research, you say, I'd like to have hopes, but what can I do as limited as I am? Actually, limitations are our strengths. Why? Because if you are limited, you can conceive of a different approach to a problem. If somebody less limited is not going to think about it.
The major problems are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And what we have to do is to think in new ways, in considering it in a Turing kind of thinking way.
There are going to be a lot more things built on top of the web. There are going to be layers and layers on top of the web. And all the time, computers are getting more powerful, people becoming connected together, the world being smaller. So there is very little time for sitting back and thinking, oh, look what we did.
Success sort of has a finality about it. Like, I've done it. Well, if you've done it, what are you going to do next? And it's always seemed to me that it's the doing of it that's the important thing, and that's the fun.
What I remember is I was working in a vacuum. My colleagues all told me I was crazy to work in cryptography. And
what I usually describe as a meeting, each of us found the other one, the best informed person willing to talk about the subject he'd yet run into.
There are certain things in the world that can't be done by one person. You need big teams. It turns out AI is like that. Speech, vision, expert systems, all of them cannot be done by one person sitting and proving a theorem or something.
I do not have a PhD. I am not Dr. Thacker. Working with Butler Lamson for approximately 2 years is the equivalent of about 5 PhDs. This choice of people with whom I have collaborated generally reflects the view that I've had about picking my collaborators, which is choose people that are smarter than you, because you learn so much from them that it's just it makes your life a pleasure.
We were, first of all, friends. And what greater joy than to sit around with your friends and try to, solve problems. It's wonderful.
One day, we were at the Norwegian Computing Center, where we developed the Simula languages, and thus object-oriented programming. A new employee came running down to the switchboard office, shouting that 2 men were fighting in front of a blackboard on the first floor. The switchboard operator stepped out into the corridor, listened for a few seconds and said, "Relax, it's only Ole Johan and Kristen discussing Simula."
So the best for me really is a short of a miracle, namely that after so many years, Shafi and I remain best friends.
I'm incredibly thankful to Silvio for all the years of collaboration and friendship and inspiration and all that advice. Only now he gives it, if I had known.
We're trying to formalize some of those patterns of packets moving around in the brain and protocols interacting with each other. And that's what led to this incredible collaboration that Vint and I had for so many years, because in many ways, he brought a slightly different perspective to the same kind of problem. Namely, thinking of it more from a pure computer science point of view, whereas I was looking at it more from a communications point of view, and literally those two morphed into one over time.
Almost all movie makers envision the future in terms of dystopian futures. I don't see those dystopian futures at all.
I've always been an optimist. To be in AI, you have to be an optimist.
We all are optimists. Most of us wouldn't undertake the projects we've undertaken if we knew how hard it was going to be.
The big award is getting to do the work. Come on. There's nothing like it. Absolutely nothing like it. It's the best.